Thank you for joining me in this fifth episode of Wisdom Talks, a Vedic Perspective. The topic which we are discussing is mindfulness, which means being in the moment. And because these days people are not mindful, they are distracted and they cannot do their job well. So let's start. We saw in the last episode, that was the agenda. We discussed already the three elements of it, and today we will be discussing the last three. We saw that students are distracted a lot these days because they have these weapons of mass distraction, or also their mind is not stable. Uh, we see the boy is getting distracted by the mobile when he has to prepare for his exams, and similarly, other situations of social media or something else distracts us. We went through the different meanings of mind, and we saw that the mind is basically a non-material reality, which is the generator of our emotions and ideas. And to be mindful means to be aware of our situations and emotions, the physical world we are in, and how we are reacting to it. That is called mindfulness. Uh, we saw through the verse of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, verse number 5, that the mind could be our greatest friend and it could be our worst enemy as well. And it is very difficult to control the mind, more difficult than controlling the wind, because of these four qualities which Arjuna mentions, which is the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong. So we can compare the mind with the mad elephant. If the elephant has gone mad, it can create a lot of havoc and destruction. But if it is tamed, then it's a huge animal which we can use for our benefit. We saw the power of mind, wherein life determines our problems, but our mind determines its size. So sometimes a small problems looks very big, and we have seen that mind can also be very powerful with the power to heal our body, like the placebo effect in a positive way, and psychosomatic illness in a negative way. And we saw with the example of a lady complaining about the frog in the belly, that how the mind creates an alternative reality and it distracts us to the point of us becoming insane. We saw the position of mind. It's an interface between the body and soul, the physical body where our senses reside, and the soul, which is the real observer. Mind acts as an interface between the two. We saw that how a software, uh, we saw through the metaphor of a computer system, the software, which is our mind, helps to interface the user and the hardware. So that's how the uh, we can understand the position of the mind. And also we understood that the importance of all these three elements, which is the hardware, software, and user. And for the perception to happen, the outer scene, which we see through our physical body, uh, and the inner screen, which is our mind, and the inner seer, which is our soul or the real observer, they have to be in line for the perception to happen. But sometimes the mind distracts, and that's how the observer cannot focus. So today we will take another analogy of a security system. So let's understand our mind through a security system set up on a multiple entrance and a multiple level high-rise apartment. So you can see on the right-hand side the picture where you can see different cameras put on different locations, exits, entrance, different floors, and there is a security man which is looking and scanning each and every screen for any wrong. So we can see here one control room with many cameras. Similarly, our mind has multiple cameras fed from our sense organs. So our five sense organs, which is ear, eyes, nose, tongue, and skin, in combination, they feed our mind, and that's how we have an inner screen having multiple windows. So ideally, the security man should be focused on the panel, and he should detect any wrong which can happen in the apartment. But sometimes what happens that the security man starts seeing his a small window, which is his mobile, and he can be distracted by seeing a movie or a cricket match from his prescribed job. So that's how our mind is also just not a neutral presenter, but it has its own emotions, desires, and feelings. And because of this, it opens a small window, and then this small window occupies our attention. It becomes a TV screen. It starts cooking its own stories, and with this storytelling of our mind, we become fearful, and that's how we malfunction. That is, we are distracted. We saw in the last discussion that the capacity of the soul to evaluate our mind is what we call as intelligence, and intelligence is meant to control our mind, not the other way around. And why these mind has these emotions, desires, and feelings? These are our impressions, and there are many such impressions which we are not aware of. For example, we can take an example of the Google search engine, wherein if we type B, Bollywood comes, because we have been searching for Bollywood for n number of times before. So even if we have an intention to search for Bhagavad Gita, the moment we put in B on the search engine, it gives you Bollywood. So these are the impressions in the subconscious mind. Similarly, because of our wild fantasies or our past life happenings, there are certain impressions which are created in our mind, in the subconscious mind, which is very difficult to control. Of course, if we are aware of it, which is the conscious mind, if we are aware of it, then it is easy to control. But these impressions, being in the subconscious mind, are not easy to control. So what we need to do, we how to mind our mind, calming our inner word churnings, because there are a lot of things which goes inside, and because of that we are not mindful. There is a saying, yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. Vritti is the impression. So yoga frees us from all material mental movements. Mind it, it is material mental movements, because if it is spiritual, then probably we are not engaged and distracted. So yoga just not means the physical exercise, which people think today is the postures which we make for our bodily well-being, but it means to connect with our real self for self-realization. It is to focus and develop our relationship with the divine, and that is, when we do that, then we can really focus on unchanging, because the divine is unchanging. It doesn't change with as the material world. For example, we can see that small kids, whenever they go out in the outer world, and they see a lot of things which is not as what they have imagined, and they come back to their parents, and once they come back to their parents, all the anxieties are gone. So similarly, when we turn inwards, we observe our real self and our connection with the divine, we are calmed, we are not distracted, and we are and the inner word churnings are calmed down. So mind has a lot of impressions, as we saw, and these impressions cover our mind, and then when it is cleaned with the process of yoga, then we it acts our mind acts like a mirror, and it reflects the pure consciousness of our soul, and that's how we become calm. So one important thing which we need to do to mind our mind is the meditation, which is the fixing on of the mind on the unchanging, as we said, the divine, to steady us from dealing with this changing world. So basically, what we are doing here is focusing on the inner screen. We saw that there are various stimuli which can distract, or which can leave impressions on the inner screen. It could be some outer world perceptions which are agitating us, or it could be some inner impressions from the past life, the recollections which we have. So even if we sometimes go to a soothing natural environment, let's say a resort or a mountain or some very nice natural setting, we can see that because of this outer world, which is very soothing to us, we can calm down, which is the outer world can calm down. But if the inner impressions are tormenting us, we will not be calm but anxious. So meditation is not just to calm our outer world, but it is to calm our inner world as well. uh, I will just propose a 3R formula, and we can understand this with the analogy of a flowing water and an incline. So let's say we have a water flowing, let's say on a 30-degree incline, 60-degree incline, or a 90-degree incline. So 30-degree, for the 30-degree incline, water will not be that forceful. So here we can understand, we can create an analogy here, that when our habits are very we have small tendencies, it is less inclined. So the those tendencies flows in a not in a greater speed. When we have a stronger habit, that means the water is flowing on a bigger incline, let's say 60 degrees. And when we have an addiction, when the habits are very strong to a point of we are addicted to that, then the water flows just like that. It is the momentum is very intense. So when the our habits are small, which means we have a tendency to do something, we can create a restriction, which means a small partition, so that the water doesn't flow, and it creates problems hitting something valuable inside us. uh, so we can maintain a distance, we can minimize the exposure to such to such effects from the moving water, flowing water. And if we have a structure, even if our mind distracts us, we will not be distracted. So greater is the structure, lesser is the rupture, as we say. So when we have these small tendencies, we can use the formula of restriction. But if the water is flowing on a bigger incline, let's say 60 degrees, then sometimes we just cannot restrict because the flow is very high. Then we can redirect. So if the speed of water is fast, then the small partition which we have built will not work, will not help. And we need to have something else like a mop or a brush to redirect the accumulating water, because otherwise the water can overflow and create problems. So similarly, we can whenever the pop-ups are coming of different distractions, if they are coming fast on our mind, then if we focus on something else, then those pop-ups will not consume or distract our mind fully. These alternate things could be alternative engagements, could be some music, some sports, meditation, chanting, the chanting, which we call as the chanting of mantras, which we definitely elevates us. And through this redirection, we can very well keep these pop-ups coming at an incline of 60 degrees and probably hitting us. Through redirection we can handle them. And then lastly, the restructuring. So reconstruction, which means that once we do the above two processes of restriction and redirection repeatedly, gradually we will restrict or redirect. We will not only restrict or redirect, but with the help of the new habits, eliminate the problem of distraction completely. So that is reconstruction. Sometimes our willpower doesn't only help. We need to follow a certain process, which leads to the result of being mindful. And the process is that we need to be persistent, which means we have to be patient, and we have to be firm in our approach. Of course, we need to use our intelligence to not only to control the mind and to be persistent, but also to analyze what appears on our inner screen, and is it worth our attention or not. So there could be a lot of distractions which can happen, but if we are intelligent enough to identify the right pop-ups with the wrong pop-ups, then we can focus and put our attention on the right pop-ups. And finally, the transcendence, which means that to identify and to know and to realize that there is a higher reality beyond this material world, the divine. And if we can focus our attention on the divine, then because it's unchanging, then we could very well be situated in ourselves. We can have the self realization, and we will not be distracted much. One of the processes which in our tradition we do is the dhyana yoga, which is the chanting of mantras. We also call it vibration yogas, because the mantras through the sound vibration really calms our mind, and that helps a lot. So you can try that as well. You can do the dhyan yoga, which is the meditation based on the chanting of mantras given in our scriptures. So at last, what I will say, don't get bogged down with the technicalities here. Just try to build the good habits, and these good habits will fight the bad ones themselves. And when you will apply this process of restriction, redirection, and reconstruction, uh, with the process of persistence, intelligence, and the realization of the divine, which is transcendence, you can be mindful over the period of time. So all the best to you, my dear students. If you have any questions, please let me know. And next week I will be coming up with a brand new topic. Thank you. Hare Krishna.